Your heart feels like it's about to burst. Your legs are so tired, you feel as though you could pass out. But you don't stop. No, you can't stop. You've trained way too long and hard to do that. You keep your mind focused on your task and instead of on the pain that you feel in your lungs. What is that task? The last 100 meters of the brutal 400-meter Olympic final. You are pumping your arms efficiently and focusing on your form. Suddenly, you feel yourself start to pull ahead. You're 20 meters from the finish line, and you think you have the race in the bag, but suddenly, a Russian sprinter in the lane next to you passes you in the final steps, and you finish second. You feel devastated that you blew the lead, but also extremely confused. You notice the times that the Russian runner had previously posted were really not all that great. You think to yourself, must have taken a miracle for him to run as well as he did today. Was it really a miracle? I would like to welcome listeners worldwide to another ball-bouncing episode of Controversy in Professional Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Duffy, and today I'm going to be talking about what I know about the prevalent issue of steroid use in the Olympic Games. Why waste any time? Now let's jump right into it. I'm sure you've all heard about what happened last year in the 2020 Olympic Games when the country of Russia was not allowed to compete under their own flag. Most of us knew their athletes were banned from competing under their flag because there was a performance-enhancing drug scandal. This was just one of the few big stories that hit the news that have been brought to the public's attention in recent years. Another household name, Christian Coleman, an American sprinter, missed 3 different drug tests in this past year and therefore was not allowed to compete in the Olympics. Now a little throwback for the older listeners here. Does the name Ben Johnson ring a bell? Well, it should. In the 1988 Olympic Games, not only did he win the gold medal, but he also set the world record for the 100-meter dash. However, you can probably guess what I'm about to counter this with. He had that incredible feat and medal taken away from him because he was caught using performance-enhancing drugs. The big question is why? Why do they do it? They're at the height of the sports world, and they decide to throw it all away. Do they just decide to bend the rules and live in guilt? Why can't athletes just be content with committing to a clean Olympic Games with no drug use? These were the questions that I was asking as I began to look into this topic more and more. It turns out that because of the way the media and culture puts athletes on such a pedestal, the athletes think that winning at all costs, even if that means cheating and using PEDs, is the most important thing. What would you do if you had one chance to compete every 4 years and you wanted to make the most of it? Athletes have carried this win-at-all-cost mindset with them forever. Ever since ancient Greece athletes have tried to give themselves a competitive advantage and edge over other athletes. This statement was true when they were competing in their event, but even out of the Olympics when they weren't competing. Raw animal testicles were something that athletes in those days chewed on to benefit their performance. Wow, talk about a win-at-all-cost type mentality. In the 1900s, some athletes began experimenting with anabolic steroids, different hallucinogens, and even morphine. A Welsh cyclist named Arthur Linden took too much morphine for his body to handle, and he ended up becoming the first person to die from performance-enhancing drugs. As you may be able to tell, athletes truly do the most when it comes to competing and excelling in their Olympic event at a high level. American backstroke swimmer Ryan Murphy comments after his race, "I don't know if that race was 100% clean," via Goldman. He made this comment after he finished second to a Russian swimmer in his best event. There is no doubt athletes are cheating, but how much are they cheating? It doesn't matter whether it was back in the day or now in the present. Athletes think the same way. I want to win, however I can. I honestly just feel bad for the Olympic scientists and the testers that have to deal with all of this because it's a lot of pressure. Athletes are now trying new ways to get around steroid tests and taking new substances that some tests don't notice. They also have to take into account that athletes already have a certain amount of testosterone in their body, and they can't accidentally mess up the level of testosterone and get them disqualified. Added on top of that are those people that have medical exemptions and say that they need certain substances either for their mental health or for something else. I think that most of it is legit. However, I think quite a bit of it could be totally wrong and unfair. Those scientists just have a lot to deal with, and it's pretty rough. Recently, there's been some sort of scientific breakthrough that says blood chip technology testing could be the future, and I truly hope that works out for the Olympics, but I'm still skeptical. With all of the stories that I've heard and all that I've read it's hard for me to not be a little bit skeptical. If a clean Olympic Games, meaning an Olympic Games without any steroid use, ever happens again, it will be because of the IOC, which stands for the International Olympic Committee, and the WADA, stands for the World Anti-Drug Association, cracks down on those athletes and countries that continue to use PEDs. It is those two organizations' job to make sure that the Olympics run smoothly and fairly. However, recently they have received a good amount of backlash from certain Olympic nations. Those nations complain that specifically the IOC is not doing enough to prevent PED use from happening. They also suggest that the WADA needs to play a bigger role in the Olympics and prevention of steroid use. I hope that all who are listening are informed about what the issue of performance-enhancing drugs in the Olympics looks like. I think that a quote I heard when I was doing my research reiterates my points I made about PEDs. John Hoberman, the author of a very, very good Lancet article, and a professor at the University of Texas, Austin, says, "The idea of having an entirely clean games this year is a utopian fantasy," via Birchard, the author. I hope that all who listen to this podcast learn something new. I challenge you guys not to just forget about this topic, but give it some thought. After hearing all of this, do you think that there will be an Olympics in the future where no one uses any steroids or drugs?